Last class, we began the introduction on formation of corporations. We say you can operate as a sole proprietorship. Some advantages and disadvantages there. Advantages, you're like, well, easy to start. You just start operating as a business today, selling something online, creating a website, TikTok shop, right? Something of the sort. Disadvantages, you are not protected legally in any separate way, which means if you face any kind of lawsuit, you directly as an individual will be impacted. You also are taxed as an individual as well too, not necessarily good. So you may want to consider having legal protection and consideration on taxes. Beyond that, we said that you can have a limited liability corporation, a LLC, which is good. It separates you individually from the company itself. Possibly good for tax advantages, maybe, maybe not. But at least the liability part is good. You get to separate you from the organization in case that there's any issues or lawsuits or things of that nature. We also talked about partnerships, right? You can do partnerships in many different ways. You got general partnerships, limited liability partnerships, limited partnerships, with different kind of setups, right? In cases where you may have 50-50 split ownership, or 50-50 split in liability, right? In case there are any lawsuits or debts, things of that nature. Or you can mix things up. Someone can be kind of a silent partner. They just put up the money, but they don't really do any of the day-to-day operations. Other people manage the corporation. So you can do kind of unique things there with partnerships. Now we're going to get into kind of the major corporations. Corporations that you would see on an index, a stock index of some sort. Think of the New York Stock Exchange, for example. Large companies that you could buy ownership in. So we'll talk about C corporations and S corps and a little bit of not-for-profit organizations as well too. So who owns stock? Anyone owns any stock in any company at all? Was there a reason why no one owns stock? Who here owns crypto? Anyone have any crypto? What do you have? You don't have to tell us how much, but
Like it was in the
XRP.
in the cash app, or you can like buy some stocks or like some I had that.
Okay. Right, think of this concept. Where are you keeping your money? Like, I have a checking account, savings account, like, you're not making any money off that money, right? So like, hey, stocks are usually the best way to invest, right? And if you invest the right way with the right company at the right time, you might score it big and retire early. So think if you had invested in Amazon when it first came out versus what it's worth now. Someone Google Amazon's initial stock price. Someone Google that for me. Tell me what it is. Amazon's initial stock price.
It says Amazon went public on May 15th, 1997, and the IPO price was $18.
$18 a share. Let's see what Amazon is now. Alright, so they're at Amazon, they're like, hey, you know what, I bought it at $18 a share, right? And you're like, hey, no, I bought 1,000 shares, $18 a share, 1,000 shares. Right? And now you say, hey, you know what, that's $18,000. Right, I saved up all my money, and I put $18,000 towards Amazon for the first handout. What would that $1,000 be right now at this price? I mean, what would that $18,000 be? Right, you can retire, basically, right? Like you have a couple $1 million, $2 million. You're a millionaire, right? So it goes to show you that, hey, if you can start off with catching a good company at the beginning, a publicly traded company, you can retire early, right? That's why you kind of want to pay attention and ride the wave, especially now with artificial intelligence companies, AI. All right, so Amazon is a C corporation, a large, very common, publicly traded corporation. It can create unlimited amount of shares to sell to investors. Those investors are owners in the company. So if you have stock in Amazon, you are an owner of Amazon, right? So you could say like, I have ownership in Amazon, right? That's a pretty remarkable thing to say. You have stock in Apple, you're like, I'm an owner of Apple, right? So a lot of power there. Alright, so we say C corporation is the most common type of a corporation. You got an unlimited amount of stock, right? So it offers limited liability. So you're not responsible as an owner of Apple stock. You won't be sued if Apple is sued. So you're protected, right? Like that's kind of cool, right? So if Apple gets sued, the corporation gets sued, but you as an owner, stockholder, will not have to worry about that, right? Now you may worry about it if Apple does bad in its performance or it does get sued and it takes away a lot of the revenue, then the value of the stock will go down and you'll lose money, right? You won't be sued, but you could lose the value of your stock at some point. All right, we say these corporations have to have bylaws. They have to state explicitly how they're going to operate the business. The government comes down pretty heavy on C corporations. You have to register things like with the Security Exchange Commission, the SEC, if you are going to have stocks that the public is able to buy. This also means that your information is out there. We can quickly Google all the spreadsheets, all of the documents from the last quarter of earnings. We can see everything if it's a publicly traded C corporation, right? And then you will have a board of directors. Right? Board of directors. The board of directors are kind of like politicians. You may vote to elect your congressperson. You may vote to elect your alderman or your senator, right? They are elected. But they represent you. They represent your interests as a owner of the corporation. And so if there's a CEO that they're considering hiring, they will send you some documentation to say, hey, would you like to vote for the CEO that we're considering hiring? You may say no, right? And what happens if that CEO is not gonna get hired by the board of directors? So you have some power, it's good. The board of directors set the corporation's mission and its broad objectives. They want to steer the company where it's going in a broad manner, right? So it appoints chief executive officer, chief financial officer for day-to-day management of the corporation. All right, so we talked about stocks, but there's also institutional investors. So we say institutional investors will be that, hey, this university gets a lot of money from your tuition. You're like, what does it do with their money? Does it put it in a checking account, a CD, a savings account? You're like, no, it probably buys stocks, right? So it's an institutional investor. It's not one individual buying stock. It's the whole organization buying stock. They could buy Apple, they could buy Amazon, they could buy Walmart stock. They could buy what we call an index fund, like a collection of stocks, like the S&P 500. Right, so like those are institutional investors. Other institutional investors are governments. The state of Illinois also buys stocks and bonds. The city of Chicago also buys bonds and stocks and things like that. It invests money, right? It doesn't just let the money sit there in some sort of account. The pension fund, right? Police, firemen, teachers, those are funds. They're institutional investors, counted as institutional investors. They buy stocks and other securities. Right, so you're like, that's a lot of power. Not only are you getting investments from individuals, you're getting investments from major entities, governments, right? Schools, things of that nature. So you're like, see, corporations, at this stage, if you're able to make it, if you were the owner, you're a billionaire. Okay? So let's say you start a little company selling clothes, it gets really popular, you have it as a sole proprietor, and you're like, okay, it's getting pretty big, I don't want the tax burden on me individually, I'll make an LLC, and it can get beyond the LLC, and like, I think I want to go public with this and sell 1 million stocks of my company to the public. You get listed up on the New York Stock Exchange that day, and that day you were a billionaire, very quickly. Like, hey, the stock, the IPO, right? Initial public offering, your first day offering stock, will be $10 a share, and you'll be on the Forbes billionaire, right? So like C corporations is usually when you become a massive corporation. All right, some advantages, right? We say limited liability, stockholders are not being sued, the corporation is still being sued, right? There's some permanence there, right? It's very difficult to dissolve, right? It takes a lot to dissolve and get rid of this corporation because so many different people are invested in it. Ease of transfer of ownership, right? Transfer of ownership means selling stock. So if someone buys a stock, they're an owner. Quick to raise capital. So think about that. If you make out of thin air, you just say, we're going to create more stock for people to buy, you can raise $1 billion very quickly. You use that $1 billion to buy buildings and things for transportation, more stores, retail stores, hire people, research and development, et cetera, et cetera. An ability to make use of specialized management. Some disadvantages. Well, it's expensive. I got a lot of paperwork, right? A lot of paperwork, a lot of things to consider. So proprietorship, you just start selling. That's it. Not that difficult. LLC, a little bit of paperwork with the government, right? With the Secretary of State. Go get a bank account, business credit card, business debit card. You start doing business, inventory, things. But like C corporations is complicated, right? You have a lot of moving parts, a lot of people involved. Especially when you're doing it in different states, right? Complications when operating in multiple states. This kind of also works for the LLC. Remember I said most major corporations, these C corporations, incorporate in the state of Delaware. Delaware is the first state in the US. So Delaware protects businesses, it doesn't provide a lot of information to the government, right? Even if the government's seeking this information about corporations. So people like that, right? People like that protection. Now if you say, I incorporated in Delaware, but I'm gonna do business in Illinois, I'm gonna operate business, you also have to incorporate in Illinois. But you incorporate as a foreign organization. Foreign because you initially incorporate in Delaware, that's your home incorporation. Any other state you operate is considered a foreign company. Right? Any other state. And you have to fill out some paperwork. Right? Same kind of goes here with C corporations as well too. Now the major difference we'll talk about between C corporations and S corporations is double taxation on earnings and additional taxes. The downside is like the government is going to tax C corporations as a corporation on all of its earnings. But then we said, well, we have stockholders and they do their own taxes each year. Are they gonna be taxed again once they have to file their taxes? The answer is yes. So like, well, that sucks. The corporation's being taxed by the government, and then the owners, the stockholders, are also gonna be taxed too. Capital gains tax, you made money from stock investment, etc. You're like, well, that sucks, right? So, but in theory, you're like, well, why would anyone do this? Well, because the unlimited amount of stock options. So once again, you can dissolve for more stock, right? So it's kind of a balance there. Some people like it, some people don't. But it's the most common form of corporation, right? All your major corporations you could think of are usually C corps. More regulation. Remember I said the register usually things with like Security Exchange Commissions and other state regulatory bodies. All right, and then S corporation, right? A form of corporation that avoids double taxation by having its income taxed as if it were a partnership, right? So the S corp is similar to a C corp, right? You can have stocks, you can offer shares. The thing is, you have only a limited amount of shares you can offer. There's like a threshold to the amount of shares. The corporation wouldn't be taxed, but individuals who own stock shares would. So you're like, okay, we've eliminated the tax burden from the corporation. So it's treated as a partnership. People who invest in this company are partners in the company, right? Partners, not necessarily complete owners, right? What we saw with the C corp, yeah, you're an owner, major owner, right? Not-for-profit corporation, right? Not-for-profit doesn't mean you don't make a profit, right? They're billion-dollar not-for-profit organizations. It's usually smart if you are a C corporation to have a not-for-profit organization as well, right? Because usually you want to show that you do something good around the world. You're environmentally friendly, corporate social responsibility, right? Save the whales, or some sort of special mission that you have to do something good. We say, hey, what's the difference not-for-profit and these other corporations? Well, not-for-profit, you can't have shares, right? It's generally used for like social welfare, right? General social welfare. You want to do something good in the world. You're not seeking to just create a corporation for a profit, right? Which the other companies are. They want a profit, right? Not-for-profit is more about some other sort of social regardless. But people still have major salaries. You can still be making multiple millions of dollars as a chairman of a not-for-profit organization or as a manager. You still can make a lot of money. You say the benefit there is tax exemption. So you are exempted from a lot of taxes. And we say this university is a not-for-profit organization. Right? But it still invests in for-profit stuff. Because it would be too expensive to have this large land and these structures to pay taxes on each year. Probably wouldn't have to shut down the operation really puts it was a for-profit. Right, so you say most libraries are not-for-profit, most museums are not-for-profit organizations, right? A lot of other large kind of social facilities would be not-for-profit. Anyone here interested in starting a not-for-profit? No kind of charity organization you wanna start? You wanna help me save the whales? Alright, so with that S corp, we say there's a limitation of stockholders. It can have no more than 100 stockholders, right? With some exceptions, right? Only rare exceptions. Each stockholder must be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident of the U.S. No ownership by foreigners or other corporations. You're like, well, that's limited. But as a C corp, you could be a foreigner and purchase Apple. You could be a foreigner and purchase Walmart stock, Target stock, anything of the sort. But with this S corp, like, no, they don't allow it. You gotta be a U.S. resident, U.S. citizen or permanent resident, and you have no more than 100 stockholders. Now, it may be very wealthy stockholders, and the stock may be very expensive, so it will still be a billion-dollar company. And then we said the advantages is stockholders have limited liability. Once again, stockholders are protected, but the company can still be sued. And then we said the taxes, earnings pass through the company and are taxed only as income to stockholders, thus avoiding the problem with double taxation, like we saw with C corporations. And then we had the S or statutory, right, and not-for-profit, right? So we're still talking about S corporations. Sometimes we call these statutory. So it's closed corporations, right? Operating under simpler arrangements than conventional corporations. For example, they don't have to elect a board of directors or hold an annual stockholders meeting. With a C corporation, you do. You have to legally have a board of directors, and you have to have annual meetings for everyone to keep up on. Other advantages. All owners can actively participate in management while still having limited liability, right? So you can operate the business as a manager, but you're still protected from lawsuits. Once again, the corporation could be sued, but you personally as a manager, CEO, or anything like that, an executive, you can't be sued personally for what happens within the company. Now with this other statutory or closed corporation, we say number of stockholders vary among states, but usually no more than 50, right, for closed corporations. Stockholders normally can't sell their shares to the public without first offering shares to existing owners, and not all states allow formation of this type of corporation, right, so it's rare. And then with not-for-profit, some of the advantages, we say, hey, earnings are exempt from federal and state income taxes, which is great. All the money you make, tax exempt, right, and not tax on it. Members and directors have limited liability. Once again, if you're chairman, a part of board of directors for not-for-profit, you can't be sued personally for things that happen with the not-for-profit. Individuals who contribute money or property to a not-for-profit can take a tax deduction, making it easy for these organizations to raise funds for donations. So like, yeah, it's a not-for-profit, the good thing is you can take donations. Part of all the money that you make would be from people donating. And there's a lot of wealthy people that want to lower their tax burden and says, hey, I'm going to donate anyway. The government's taking this money through taxes. Instead of letting them take all this money, I'll just donate this money. So I won't get taxed for it. So like you can kind of raise a lot of funds through donations with a not-for-profit, right? Just like you went somewhere and you had a raffle and you paid for it, or a museum wants you to donate, or St. Jude's, right? Foundations, things like that. All right, and with the limitations, you say it has members who may pay dues, but cannot have stockholders. So no stockholders, but you can have members. Okay, you have members, you can create membership, right? And with the membership, you can charge people per month. but they're not owners in the corporation. So like you can have a membership at, say the museum or something like that. You get a discount for coming to the museum a few times a year. They'll send you all sorts of advertisements about things that members can do versus non-members. But you don't own the nonprofit. You're not a stockholder. Right? Cannot distribute dividends to its members. Are you familiar with dividends? Right, so going back to say C corporations, right? Major corporations where you have stock options. You can also have dividends. So dividends would be kind of an arrangement to where if a company is really profitable, not only did that stock go up, and you've increased the value of, say, your net worth or your investment, but they might pay you extra money, maybe each year, twice a year, 4 times a year. It depends. And what happens is sometimes you get a lot of money, a lot. So there are wealthy people that literally buy stocks that have the option to have dividends. Not every stock has dividends. So you may look at Walmart, I don't know, they may have, may not. Microsoft may have dividends or not, right? You can still buy the stock, but you may not get this extra money when they perform. But for the companies that do, you can live off the dividends. So imagine, depending on the amount of stock that you own, then you can make $300,000, $1 million a year off dividend, doing nothing. And that company's paying you out 4 times a year, twice, once a year, something of the sort.
Why does that happen?
So usually the arrangement is if the company performs past a certain threshold, performs very well, that they offer kind of a part of that earnings back to stockholders. And it's an incentive to say like, wow, I want to buy more stock in this company, they're treating me very well, right? So it's kind of an incentive to get people to buy into it, right? It's part of an investment here. But you're like, that's great. Just imagine if you say you have 1,000 stocks in a company, and you're like, okay, the dividends came out at $500 per share. You're right, you can make $500,000 given out to you. And your stocks are still there, your thousands, and they've went up in value. It's like you've made all this money, right? So dividends are good. Unfortunately, not-for-profits, you can't do that. Because once again, you can't offer these sorts of things, right? So something to look into. Your future is usually bounded by your investment strategy. So whether you're going to be wealthy or not, typically it has to involve some sort of investment. Now people invest in other things. Some people do real estate. You're like, oh, put their money in real estate. But for the most part, the most common is put your money in stocks. Right? Usually stocks will outperform those other types of investments. The most easiest thing to kind of invest in, and you say, hey, I want to put my money and I want to sleep at night, I don't want to have to worry about it, is an index stock, which means it's a collection of a bunch of stocks related to certain things, certain industries, right? Such as the S&P 500. Vanguard has an S&P 500 index fund, they call it, and usually it performs very good. It's one of the best performing. Right? It kind of outperforms everything because it's like the average of how good the country is actually doing. All right, another limitation. Not-for-profits. You cannot contribute funds to a political campaign. C corporations, you could. That's why we see our politicians going out for votes. They're trying to get corporations to give them money, contributions, right? They want Walmart and Target and Apple to contribute tons of money for their campaign. With the promise like, hey, Walmart, Apple, Target, I'm gonna look out for businesses like you once you get me in office. And so the corporation's like, hey, you're looking out for our best interest? Here's $10,000 for your campaign. Okay? Now you have more advertisements to make you more popular to get more votes. So with not-for-profits, you can't do that, right? No contribution funds to a political campaign. Other than not-for-profit, must keep accurate records and paperwork to document tax exempt status, right? So the government's really a stickler for keeping records of this. Because it's like, hey, you're not paying taxes, the IRS is allowed you not to do it, we wanna make sure you're not doing something illegal and skirting taxes too, right? So, remember, the government always wants this tax money. So you have to keep records, right? You wanna keep track of what's going on with all this money. All right, corporate restructuring, ways for corporations to grow and achieve competitive advantages. As a business, you are playing a game, kind of like everything else in life. Most things in life are gamified, which means we're competing with things. It's kind of like sports, right? We're competing. And so if you have a competitor out there, let's say the competitor is really small, not even really a threat, but you think they have something there that customers like, and they could potentially be a threat in the future. What you can do is buy them out. Like before they get really big and become a real competitor, I'm just gonna offer them some money that I think they'll take now and buy them out and make them part of my company. Right? Amazon does that all the time. Think of Ring cameras and all sorts of things, right? They bought companies. Google does that all the time as well too, right? You're buying out competitors so that they're not a threat, right? So you do the acquisition, right? Part of it is corporate restructuring, which one firm's buy another. So you're like, hey, we're gonna restructure, we're gonna buy this other company, we're gonna bring in its process, its customer base, all these different things, and now we're kind of a new type of company. We're bigger, better, more powerful than we were before. Next we have mergers, right? You're like, all right, two formerly independent business entities combine to form a new organization. Let's say they come together willingly, right? So that they can maybe have more market share, so that they can kind of take over the industry. Sometimes it's allowed, sometimes it's not allowed. There's a major corporation, a C corporation, the government may say, no, that's too powerful, it's kind of monopolizing the industry. They may allow, may not allow the merger. Can you think of any major mergers that you've seen in recent years? You think of any mergers, major corporations merging together?
Gatorade Power.
Gatorade and Power, right? Kind of, that's powerful. For both of you to come together to try to get that market share, you're like basically eliminating any other new competitors that could come out and fight against you, right? I don't know. Should have been allowed, may not be allowed. Can you think of anything else? Sprint and T-Mobile, right? Sprint was its own individual service provider, merged with T-Mobile. And now T-Mobile can really compete, because before really Sprint or T-Mobile really couldn't compete with AT&T and Verizon. Now they can kind of compete, right? Kind of major players in the game after the merge. We got things like horizontal mergers. They're part of the same industry. So Sprint and T-Mobile will be a horizontal merger. They're both in telecommunications. Right? Vertical merger, combination of firms at different stages in the production of a good or service. Right? We say vertical means, hey, we got a new kind of kid on the block with a product. They're kind of making the same product as ours. Well, we're at a different stage. Maybe they have something new and innovative, but we've been in the game for a long time producing this thing. And so we want to merge with them to bring their new innovative technologies to our kind of stable operations. And then conglomerate merger, combination of two firms that are in unrelated industries, totally unrelated industries, which is essentially to create a conglomerate. Like, I want to have a powerful corporation, so as Amazon Amazon, be like, hey, we are in the business of selling books. Originally, like we sell books. Interesting. Like, how did you get in the, how did you get into the media company? Amazon Fire? Amazon Prime? Amazon Movies? Like, how did they come from books? Like, well, we decided to do conglomerate merger. We just buying a bunch of stuff from unrelated industries so that we can own a lot of different stuff in different areas, right? Ring camera, all these different things, right? You think of potentially maybe Apple coming out with its own electric vehicle, Google coming out with its own electric vehicle. Like, how did that happen from phones and AirPods, right? Well, we want to be a conglomerate. We want to own things in some unrelated industries. All right, let's have our first presentation. Okay, let's come up here with Lululemon.
Okay, so, say like around 120.
Oh,
Yeah.
anyone here owns Lululemon? What was the price of whatever it is you bought?
My girlfriend got it for me was $75 for some shorts.
Worth it? You feel that's worth it or
No.
no? No?
Mm-hmm.
What about in the back?
I have a lot of the jackets, so I don't think it's worth it, but like the trend, it makes me get them. So I have 5 jackets, and that's like 120, I wanna say, so, and I didn't use them.
So do you feel like, okay, Lululemon's quality, it feels like quality, or it just feels like a regular old?
Honestly, I don't wear it regular, so I just bought it because of the trend, but
Gotcha.
like,
Because of the popularity?
yeah, because it was popular.
Now, if you had to guess why there's some decline with the investors, could you think of anything that's happening here? Or is the market getting too saturated with competitors, or is it the economy that just sucks here, or?
Like the economy and the market as well, because I think I saw like a video too. It was like brief, but it talked about how the marketing wasn't doing to get too good either. Like it was just like playing the same things, like doing something more creative to like reach out to like customers.
So they're not innovating?
Yeah.
Really? Okay, excellent, great. Retail sales slowly decreasing. You work in retail, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to work.
Go to the slideshow at the top.
So, retail sales will be decreasing. I do work in retail, so I have been seeing it, decrease by like a lot, not just slowly, like a lot. So key factors contributing to the decline: tariff fuel spending. In the monthly and up to a potential tariff increase, consumers rush to purchase big ticket items like cars and building materials to avoid higher future costs, creating a surge in early year spending that was then followed by a decline. Also consumer anxiety and sentiment are uncertainty about the economy and trade policy led to cautious consumer behavior with some reports noting a wait and see approach. Key statistics: in September, retail sales decreased by 1.1% compared to an increase of 0.8% in August. Sales at Billings were strong by 3%, while electronics and appliance through stores reported a decline of 2.4%. How are companies responding to this? As the retail sector prepares for the effect of these data, and analysts are closely monitoring customer behavior throughout the forthcoming holiday season. Retailers are anticipated to change their methods, emphasizing deals and marketing to attract hesitant customers. The hope is that consumer spending will recover, but present data shows that Corona had made it difficult. I think for my store, all the summer we had stuff on clearance, but nothing was selling like at all. So all of our store was like half of it was just clearance, and it was just a lot of it. So every day we would get markdowns of like everything, but nothing would sell. So at one point, like we had to put everything for it to be 50% off, and it still didn't get sold. Like,
It still
it
didn't?
still didn't, like a few here and there, but we didn't get rid of nothing else. So we still have a bunch of like clearance, but like no one's really buying. So then right now we're like doing really fast, so our hours have been getting cut, and it's crazy because the holiday season is coming up, and this is the time where we should start getting prepared for it. You know, like have the employees get to like know what it's like to like
All right, the business side of Formula One. Yeah, maybe just click on each one.
Just as any other sport, Formula One is a business. Formula One operates as a sophisticated business entity, and basically everything surrounding Formula One outside of the sport aspect is a business. Formula One creates many jobs. Formula One needs a substantial staff like engineers, mechanics, etc. And there are 10 teams, and each team typically employ between 300 people to 1,000 people. So it creates many jobs and it makes money through different aspects, from the broadcasting rights to the construction of cars. Um, each year Formula One hosts 24 races in various locations around the world, and they have to negotiate the contracts with the venues. So the circuits or cities must pay a fee to have the rights to host a race in front of it. And in return, they get a significant economic impact due to the tourism that the sport generates. For example, some prices in some places are lower. Here, I think next week there's a race, if I'm not wrong, in Austin, Texas, and I think the price is around $50. And in some places, the price is higher, it's like 1,000, 2,000. And many people travel to different locations to watch the race because the tickets are, the prices are lower in some places. So they generate many tourism for some places. And but I think the most interesting part is that it's a very expensive sport to produce. So have you ever watched a race? Yeah. So you know that the crashes are very bad. So sometimes the drivers compete with the traffic cars, and if you haven't, I'm going to show you.
Did you want the sound? Let's see. Okay.
So because this happens often, of marketing on social media, commercials, and that kind of things. They also, to make revenue, they sell merchandise. The F1 store is categorized by drivers and things, so it's primarily targeting fans, but something that is happening right now with the sport is that a lot of people that is not fan of the sport buying merchandise and going to the races because there's this psychological idea that Formula One brings status for some people because they think because it's an expensive sport to produce, they think it gives status. But how I said before, the prices actually depend on the things.
Excellent. Thank you. So Formula One creates an entire economy. Cities are paying to have it. City sponsors are paying fees to be part of it. Drivers are ambassadors. They promote all these different things. So yeah, lots of different things. But as you said, depending on the location and the venue, it could be $1,000. A ticket could be $50. People don't like the $1,000 market because of the people who are really into races don't think it should be some sport that no one can afford to see, right? The thing should be affordable for all. All right, excellent. Who else emailed me today? Okay. Now, for those of you who didn't have anything today, try to have something Tuesday to present, to kind of catch up and stuff, all right? And what we'll do, we'll end off here, and we'll just pick things up back on Tuesday, all right? I'll let you go. You all have a great weekend. I'll see you next week.
Our presentation will be about anything.
Yeah, business related.
Yeah.